And today's topic is understanding what the franchise disclosure document, or FDD, is. To start, it's a goldmine of information on a franchise. Each franchise in the U.S. has its own FDD, and they update them each year. And all prospective franchisees will get an FDD during the discovery process. Each FDD contains the same 23 sections, and we call these sections items. And here are some of the topics that you can learn about when you read an FDD: the history of the company, cost and fees, territory, exit strategies, financial statements on the company, contracts, and other good stuff. All right, Heather, help our audience understand what are FDDs and why are they important for franchise candidates to know about them.
Yep. Thank you so much. The franchise disclosure document, or FDD, is a document that all franchisors, there's over 6,500 of us, that have to file it every single year in all the states. There are 15 registration states, and they have an option to either add or not add a little bit of language to the document through an addendum. But know this: the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, heavily regulates everything that we do in franchising. So if someone wants to explore a franchise, the Federal Trade Commission does require that the franchisor disclose that individual with the full document. We send it to you. The good news is, though, all the FDDs are laid out exactly the same. They all have those 23 items that you said. Whether you're looking at a McDonald's FDD or Chick-fil-A or whatever it is, they're all formatted the same. And this is just to ensure that there's no surprises throughout your long-term relationship between that franchisee and franchisor.
Right. And it also makes it easy to compare franchises.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Now, Heather, as the representative of 1-800-STRIPER, you've got a really important role in helping franchise candidates understand what's in your FDD. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I know the document can be very daunting in an FDD, and I actually really love going through it with candidates. It's my role as a seasoned pro to ensure that anyone who works with me gets through this long document written by franchise attorneys with clarity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I always want to invest that time to ensure when I'm speaking to my people that they're comfortable with the document and fully informed. You know, I always recommend to candidates to get a franchise attorney to review the agreement. You know, if it's not clear, and it happens normally towards the end of the process.
Right. All right. So let's talk about, help us, the audience, understand what's in an FDD. I gave just, a hint in the Franchise Minute video, but give us a little bit more detail about the contents. I mean, an FDD is usually how long, Heather?
Oh my gosh, 300 and something pages. It's ginormous.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this, it's a book that you get. And one of the things that I found as a franchise advisor is that I think people are scared that they're going to get this gotcha moment, like, oh, I didn't know to ask, or oh, that was hidden, or whatever. No, the FDD makes sure that doesn't happen, right, Heather?
Yeah, and honestly, some franchisors will send it to you and say, hey, let me know if you got any questions.
Right.
We don't want to do that. And I really love this question because honestly, not all franchisors are created equal. So you really want to choose your partnership wisely. So take the document, pick it up, put it down. When you're reviewing it, under the items that Anna was referencing, items 1 through 4 are concentrated on helping you understand the history of that franchisor, the industry that they're in, all about the leadership, which is really important on who's going to be supporting you and educating you in the brand, right? And then there's always those numbers sections, and that falls under the cost, which is item 5, 6, and 7 in an FDD. And then there's this section that everybody wants to jump to called item 19.
Right.
That's the one, right? The earnings claim section.
Absolutely. So Heather, let's take a moment and let's focus on the item 19. So do all FDDs have a written item 19?
You'd be surprised. They don't. It seems I know it's like, because the item 19 is really the only optional section for
Right.
a franchisor to provide or not provide details about the earnings potential of a brand. I would guess somewhere between 30 to 40% of FDDs have written earnings claims, and
An important role as a franchise developer is to help walk franchise candidates through the FDD, answer any and all questions they have about it, really understand what it's all about. And Heather, I think your approach is way better than, I mean, you're like in the top 1% of all franchise development people. From my experience, 20 years in the industry, you do a superb job. You really, really do. So let's be clear with our audience, Heather, about the purpose of an item 19. It doesn't mean someone will make what is disclosed in it. Isn't that correct?
yeah, I love the way you put that, because it can be a little bit of a misnomer. I mean,
Yes.
what you're going to make in your business, that's up to you, and that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. But the FDD is designed to show you basically a snapshot of what's been going on in that system. Think of it more like a toolbox that you're
Right.
going to use to build your pro forma. I say a brick at a time. Since all item 19s are written by that individual franchisor, their attorneys, their accountants team, do yourself a favor, slow down, take your time to understand it, because they're going to format it differently. And this is going to give you great clarity. Most people want to jump right to the numbers and try to figure it out. But
That's
it's
right.
really, if you don't understand how they're presenting it, it can get a little confusing for sure.
Right. And I always like the franchise candidate first understand, the business model. What's it all about? I mean, because you really don't understand the numbers yet, and what they really mean until you have a firm grasp of the business model, the business format, really the marketing, what are the important KPIs for the business, and all this sort of stuff before you start jumping to cost, expenses, projected revenues, and that sort of thing. That's my take on it, Heather.
Absolutely. And I think history of the brand comes into play. We have like mature brands that have been around 25 years, and their history plays right out into the numbers. If you don't get the history, then that doesn't matter. Same with an emerging brand, for sure.
Right. So one thing I want to just share, if you'll allow me to take a moment, is as a franchise advisor. So how do people know how much money you can make from a franchise? I'll tell you what I say, and then I'll let you answer. How's that?
Sure.
Is I just really stress that each franchise candidate needs to do their own research and make their own income projections based on the facts and figures they gather during the discovery process. And of course, the FDD, including the item 19, is a huge part of that, but that's not the only research they need to do. What do you say?
I agree. I mean, the item 19s, they can be very challenging to gather the details, like you were mentioning, in large franchise systems. So hundreds and thousands of franchise partners have to be participating. And that decision, sometimes that's why sometimes they're blank.
Right. Yeah.
It's just up to that franchisor. So yeah, definitely.
So that's why most franchises don't provide an item 19. It's just hard,
A lot of work. A lot of work. That's for sure.
Right. And then people want to relate it to their own particular situation, and that's really not a good use of the data that's provided. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
All right. So Heather, so we answered that question, why some franchisors don't provide an item 19. What would you say is the best way to kind of tackle an FDD?
Yeah, I always say it's not a book. Don't read it cover to cover.
Right. I totally agree.
Yeah, but I think once you get comfortable with the document and where to find certain sections, I like to concentrate on the numbers first so I can understand that, which would be items 5, item 6, item 7, and item 19. If I understand and the person I'm working with is making it make sense, then I want to dive into item 11, because that's one of my favorites. It tells you exactly what that franchisor is going to do to be supporting you for the long term. So take your time. That's really important. Then you can also take a glance at item 9, because item 9 is a very helpful tool. It has a listing of what the franchisor expects from you, and the list is much smaller than the item 11, and where to find it in that franchise agreement. So that's kind of my suggestion when you're looking at it.
So it sounds like you're going to revisit the FDD multiple times
Oh yeah,
through the discovery process.
absolutely. You got to have clarity. Absolutely.
And an important, just to emphasize this, an important job as the representative of 1-800-STRIPER is to make sure the franchise candidates do understand the contents of the FDD.
Absolutely. So that's why we do revisit it. And I always ask, the agreements are in there. I
That's
let them
right.
know it's right up front. Area
Right.
development agreement, franchise agreement. So let's keep revisiting. Let's put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up.
There was a commercial a long time ago with a hotel chain, and they said no surprises. So the purpose of the FDD, I think, is so that franchise candidates don't have any surprises once they go from candidate to actual franchisee.
Exactly.